glad you're with us. This is the Retirement Education Hour. Thanks for tuning in this week. I'm Megan Mozak, and I'm joined by financial instructors Kirk Cassidy and Dr. Paul Metler. They're with me here in the studio, both with the Retirement Education Foundation. Each and every week on the program, they aim to bring you the latest and what's going on with retirement planning, how to get more confident as you begin to look at your retirement future. And they do that here on the show. They also do that with the courses that are held at major colleges and universities sponsored by the foundation. Throughout the show today, we're going to be giving you a chance to reserve your seat for these upcoming courses. These are like master's level courses. They're held at major colleges and universities. So stand by for that information throughout the program today. We have a great show lined up for you. Today, we want to talk to you about how you may be getting misled by so-called experts in the financial industry. You know, sometimes these, what they would call rules of retirement planning, you can throw them out the window. They just don't apply anymore. And today, Kirk and Paul, they are our guides as they're going to uncover some of these things that you might have heard before. I would venture to say many of us have, and give you some warnings about what you really should be leaning into as far as truth and accuracy around retirement planning here in the 21st century. So we're going to get right to it. Kirk and Paul, there's a lot of this going on right now. It's sometimes hard to tune out the noise and filter it and get to the truth, right?
Well, it's funny because, you know, we've been doing our radio show for the charity for it's been a long time. Has it been a decade? It's been a long time that we have been on the radio representing the charity as financial instructors, trying to help people to educate themselves, to empower them to have the retirement that they've earned. Right? They've earned these retirements. And so the challenge has been and continues to be is fighting the so-called experts. And we've chosen to attack this a number of different ways. Why do the experts give the advice they give and how it's self-serving? We've tried to show the listener, you know, through education, how they can actually spend more, pay less taxes, and have less fear and anxiety. We've also sort of attacked the individual, especially the more highly educated do-it-yourselfers and things that, you know, by listening to the experts are going to take them down a path that isn't going to produce best outcomes, right? So it's a struggle. It's a struggle to connect with the listener because particularly now, everybody, I cannot believe if you listen to AM radio, if you look at watch the local networks on the weekends, the paid programming shows, everyone in the financial service industry is now on the radio and TV promoting their sales strategies. And so it's making it even more difficult. And so what I think we're going to do today is share with you what the experts say and show you why they're saying it and hopefully give you a little different perspective, all with the goal to get you to attend an 8-hour course so that you know how to find the right teams, who are the right teams, and how to find the right teams to help you through retirement. Because I'm confident most of you don't have the right teams. We also know you're not going to do this yourself. So I know, Paul, we have a lot to cover. I know the first and second segment today, we're going to talk about income and the misinformation around that, Paul.
Yeah, I think so much of the advice the experts have been telling us is so ingrained in our collective psyche that it's really hard to debunk it. I mean, I think as we're going to share here today, some of these things people are going to even question us. Like, of course, these are truths. And the reality is they're not. And you think they're truths because you think experts have been telling you. So I think this is a good show, and I think it's really going to help debunk a lot of the so-called truths out there that really are not accurate.
So the first thing we're going to talk about today is how much income do you really need in retirement and the studies that they're often quoting. And they are misleading you. Most of you are going to want to spend more. So if you want to learn more about retirement planning, and how to find the right teams to help you, you need to attend one of the charity's 8-hour courses that are taught at major universities in your area. If you'd like to register, go to retirementplanningedu.org, retirementplanningedu.org.
Yeah, I mean, Kirk, I think what makes all of this difficult is how do you determine who's an expert and who isn't, right? I think in this day and age, and this is true in a lot of fields, just because you have a title, just because you have a degree, just because you work for a particular firm that you've heard about, you assume that what they're saying has to be true. And it's very hard to figure out who's really giving you good advice and who's giving you advice that really is more in their self-interest. And I think the things we're going to share today, I think a lot of people are going to be a little stunned by, because I think people just are going to be surprised that these aren't truths, that these aren't actually, God's words. So I look forward to this. I think it's going to be a good show.
Paul, the frustrating part of this is the consumer looks to the financial service industry for so-called experts to help guide them. And the challenge is most of you have only been educated by these so-called experts for decades. So it's an echo chamber of self-serving information that our industry promotes to you guys. I mean, you really just got to think about the financial service industry as a whole. Their goal, right? Think about this. Is their goal, they're in a business. They're in business to make money. There's nothing wrong with making money. But how does someone make more money? To oversimplify things so it makes their job easier. They make more money by, I know this is strange, but you got to recognize the less money that you spend, the less of your money in retirement, the less the savings you spend, the less of your money you spend, the more they make. They get paid by managing your money. And so there is no incentive to convince you to retire. There's no incentive to convince you to spend more money. In fact, the incentives are spend less, protect your principal, spend less when the markets are bad, work longer. You may not have enough. Susie Orman's saying $2 million is like, what would she call it, like pennies? I mean, there is zero incentive by the financial service industry to help you to retire, to spend more money. In fact, they make more money the other way. So this is the goal of the class, is to help you to understand the levers and the pieces that need to be included in a retirement plan so that you can spend more, retire earlier, pay less taxes, and have less anxiety. That's why it's like a master's levels course, and they're taught at universities and colleges in your area. We just ask you to make a $29 donation to charity to attend. You can stream it from all over the country, wherever you're at, or you can come live to the universities. If you'd like to register, go to retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org. Thanks for listening to the Retirement Education Hour. Be sure to follow or subscribe when listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And now back to the show.
Been talking with Kirk and Paul today about how we might be being misled about retirement planning. Yep, you heard me right. We're uncovering what some of these so-called experts have been telling us, some of these so-called tried and true rules about retirement planning, but we're blowing the lid off of that and exposing those falsehoods in many cases and sharing the truth. And I want to start with one of the topics that I know gets so much attention, especially at your courses, Kirk and Paul, and that is what experts are claiming about income in retirement. Tell us about that.
Yeah, Megan, I think this is the one that, well, I guess they all really bother us, but this one really is something that we have been trying to drive home in our communities for years now. We've taught over 10,000 people at our charity, and consistently people come to the course underestimating the amount of income that they'll actually want to spend, let alone what they can afford to spend in retirement. They're always underestimating, and it's because for years you've heard that, there was a study done, and there really was a study done, and the study did really conclude that retirees only lived on about 70 to 80% of their income. To be specific, I think the study quotes 78% of your income is what you will spend in retirement. So that is the headline. That is the number that is often used in articles and quoted by experts in our industry. Now, look, it serves several purposes. One, it makes you assume that you're going to need and want to spend less. And the disconnect is, if you read the study, what the study tells you is that actually 66% of the people that participated in the study spent more in the first 5 years after retirement than they did the 5 years before retirement. We know this. We have helped tens of thousands of people. We've taught them around the country. We're telling you, those of you with $1 million saved for retirement or more are not going to live on 70 to 80% of your income when you were working. It's not going to happen. We know you're going to spend more in the first 5 to 10 years of retirement. See, the part of the study they don't share with you is that 40% of the people who participated in the study only had Social Security. That's all they had to live on. Paul, I think that's a disconnect for people. People assume that they are the average baby boomer. And most people listening to our shows, that are attending our classes, they're not the average baby boomer. The average baby boomer only has $200,000 saved. That's what 40% of baby boomers only have Social Security. So when they do these studies, Paul, the data is all skewed. They're not even talking to the majority of the people that are doing the education and planning for retirement in our classes or listening to these radio shows. Do you agree, Paul? I mean,
totally. Yeah, totally. I think, and you mentioned previously, we've talked about this, the incentives for people in our industry, and there's a lot of incentives for people not to spend more in retirement. But I actually just think of my, as you're talking, I'm thinking about myself, thinking about my own personal life, and not that I'm retiring, just to be clear, but I will one day, and I think I have not taken a vacation more than a week since my honeymoon, I think, right? There are things around my house I would love to do. I don't have the time. I don't have the energy to do them, right? So for most people, you work 40 hours, 50, 60 hours a week. You retire, there are things you've wanted to do that you now can do. And those things cost money. So many things that you've been putting off, you want to do. Now, some of you may not be able to. We get it. But many of you can. You just don't know it. And your advisors are telling you you can't. And the sad truth is, Kirk, we meet a lot of people in our class who come up to us and say, listen, I've been told to live on less, and I'm starting to look at how much I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave millions to my children. That was not my plan. That's the problem.
Paul, we're going to talk about that next segment. Literally, what the industry will default you to for income intentionally, and that's where they come up with this 70 to 80% number. You can spend more, a lot more. We're going to talk about it next segment. But Paul, I think you nailed on, you hit on something. If people just stopped and think a little bit common sense, let's say you're not the average baby boomer. Let's say you've saved 700,000 or a million to 20 million, $1 million to 10 million. You've been serving money. You have been serving money so that you can raise your family, put your kids through school if you put them through school, to save for retirement. You have been serving money out of necessity, sometimes out of fear. Now that transition to recognize that at some point you can stop serving money and the money is there to serve you. You spent 40 years working and serving money. It's there now to serve you. So now you're at a point in your life where now the money's there for you to serve. You don't need to save anymore. Now it's about spending. If you can flip the switch to that transition, and then you recognize, wait a second, I was spending 2,000 hours a year working. Now I'm retired. What am I doing with 2,000 hours? Guess what you're going to do? You're going to do your hobbies, your home improvement projects, all the things that you've been putting off because you've been working and serving money. These are the lessons that have to be taught to you to understand that the experts, what they're telling you is for them. It's not best for you. And that's the purpose of the charity and the course, is to help you better understand what you can have and what you can do in retirement. And then how do you do it? And how do you find the right teams to help you do that? That's what we're going to teach you in the class. That's what we've taught over 10,000 people over the last decade, changing their retirements. If you'd like to register and learn, go to retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org. Listening from outside Michigan or Missouri? We stream courses live from the university so you can attend anywhere in the country. Go to retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org to sign up. And now back to the show.
We'll get back to our program now and what we've been sharing with you today. I want to remind everyone, if you'd like to listen to this program again, or you'd like to search through our library of shows, you're welcome to do that. Simply find us wherever you download your favorite podcasts. Just search for the name of our program, which is Retirement Education Hour. We've been talking to you about how the financial industry is typically misleading us around some really important topics. And we've focused on income. This is a big one. And, Kirk and Paul, as we look at this, I know we often hear those industry experts, so-called experts, say, you need a certain percentage of your income to survive in retirement. You say the premise of that question is all wrong. It's not what you need. It's actually what you can have, correct?
Well, yeah. No, I mean, of course it is. And I'm like, duh, right? But unfortunately, that's not how people look at retirement. You've been conditioned and programmed by the financial service industry. Like, it's this whole concept. I got to serve it. I got to save it. I got money. It's like, I can't run. I'm going to outlive it. My number one fear going into retirement is, will I outlive my money? We respect and appreciate all that. Listen, I mean, that's why the class is like a master's level class. It's why it's 8 hours taught in 2 evenings or 1 full Saturday. It's why we have webinars and white papers, and the charity for over a decade has taught tens of thousands of people. In fact, we've done hundreds of podcasts, radio shows, and TV shows. Hundreds. I don't even know where we're at. And if you go back and listen to our shows, I would challenge any of you to go back and listen. Go back 3 years, 5 years, go back last year. One thing we can proudly say as a charity, as financial instructors, is I take this very serious. We attack these shows, these radio shows and these podcasts and TV shows, like it's the first time that someone's listening to us, and that we are going to change your retirement, because we do every single time someone new comes to a class. It's the class. The key is the class. If anyone listens to any of our stuff, you'll see everything, and the only thing we focus on is getting you to the class. Because I can't in a 8-minute segment, and we can't in a 30-minute webinar reprogram what the financial service industry has been programming you to believe for how many years and decades, and your whole relationship with money. It all has to shift. And that's why we push these classes and why our shows are intense. I can't think of more than a handful of shows that I would argue were bad, because we attack them, we take them serious. You can hear it in the passion we have. I don't know what we have to do to get you guys to come to a class, but all I can tell you is you guys are way underspending what you otherwise can and should be spending in retirement. And as a result, what you'll have is you'll have a lot more required minimum distributions when you get older. You'll be blown away at how much taxable income you're going to have to take in your 80s. You'll be blown away when you don't want to spend it and you don't need it. You can do risk mitigation against long-term care. There are things you can do to bulletproof retirement and also have withdrawals of 6, 7, 8, 9%. You 60, 65-year-old married couples with $1 million saved can have 7, 8%. $2 million, 7, 8, 9% a year. That means you're 65 years old. You can have $160,000 a year of income, and you can bulletproof it with all the risk mitigation. That's why it's an 8-hour class. That's why it's master's levels. And that's why we then spend a long time teaching you how to go find teams to help you, so you know what to look for in these people, not the salespeople, not the people that you hear on radio and TV selling annuities and safe money strategy. Those who are really running hundreds of iterations to show you how to maximize your income, minimize your taxes, mitigate all those risks. Paul, I get so worked up. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I think Megan said something early on that jives what you just said, which is, talk about the shift. And I do think it's, for many people, a true paradigm shift. For so long, and so much of the noise we hear is about, well, you got to figure out what you need. Let me tell you, there's a big difference between what I need, what I want, right? And so all of us have spent our whole lives, for the most part, most of us, focusing on what we need. What do I need? And I think the paradigm shift, as Megan said, is it's not, it doesn't have to be about what you need. It's really could be about what can you actually have. And for most people, especially the people listening to the show, you can have a lot more than what you need. And I can't imagine there's many people listening to this show today who are thinking to themselves, you know what, I really only want what I need. I guarantee you, if someone said you can have more than what you need, you would take it. But the problem is this industry, it doesn't really focus on that. It focuses on what you need. And so 4% is the rule they use, right? As you said, a lot of people can have 6, 7, 8% and never run out of money. These are the things that we talk about in our class.
And make sure there's a clear distinction. We're not saying 6, 7, 8, 9% growth. We're talking about income. Shift your thought process. Stop focusing exclusively on growth. It's about maximizing income in retirement. And so many of you have that $700 to $10, $20 million saved. You can have so much more income than they're telling you, and they have no incentive to teach you, show you, or build you a plan to have more. That's what we'll teach in the class. They're incentivized by you to continue work and you spend less. They make more by you spending less. It's as simple as that. So attend one of our 8-hour classes taught in 2 evenings or 1 full Saturday. We stream them live from the university, so wherever you're at in the country listening to us, you can participate. If you'd like to register, go to retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org.
Classes are forming now. Go to retirementplanningedu.org to register. Again, that's retirementplanningedu.org. Use the promo code PODCAST to receive 50% off your tuition. And now, back to the show.
Speaking with Kirk and Paul today about some of the so-called financial industry experts, some of the things that they're telling you and how misleading they can be. I want to focus especially on Social Security. Talk about a big topic here at Kirk and Paul. And there's a lot of noise out there from these so-called experts. What should we be wary of?
Well, it's funny. The title of the show, I think, was What Are the Experts Saying About Planning for Retirement? And this particular topic, Social Security, it's crazy how little people really understand what should be driving this decision, including people in the financial service industry. Look, there's a lot of experts out there. Susie Orman, Dave Ramsey, all your local experts on radio and TV that will give you general rules of thumb. And then the financial service industries conveniently created these online calculators so that you can do it yourself. You can go online and do a little Social Security analyzer and see where the break-evens are, which I think is always comical. People are so focused on breaking even. So, but the thing is, if 80 is the break-even and you die at 78, will you know that you made the wrong choice? No, you'll be dead. I mean, obviously, duh. So they've created these conveniences, almost like, I don't know if the consumer thinks it's the kindness of their heart. Well, I'll tell you why they created these silly online calculators, why the financial service industry says the next 10 callers gets a free Social Security analysis. This is a joke. These are jokes, guys. What drives the decision around Social Security it's a tax decision. It's a math problem based around taxes that no one is teaching you, no one is talking to you about it, and I can prove that you aren't doing it right, and the financial service industry gets a big fat F when it comes to Social Security strategies. Because Social Security Administration has done research, they've done a study, and they have disclosed, they've said that 90% of consumers will make the wrong choice when taking Social Security. 90% are doing this wrong. You know what's funny? The Dunning-Kruger effect. The people listening to this show right now will say, well, I'm one of those 10%. You're not. Do you know what provisional income is? I'm going to guess most of you don't. Do you know that Social Security, the taxation of Social Security, will impact the taxation of your required minimum distributions. It can impact the taxations on your dividends and your capital gains. Do you understand that this is just one lever of so many levers when it comes to taxes? And so Social Security, when and how you take Social Security, it's not just your life expectancy. It's really a tax problem. And frankly, it's definitely not the life expectancy of the highest income earner. That person's life expectancy from when to take Social Security is irrelevant. That is simply an excuse for you to take it early when you shouldn't be. If you're unhealthy and your life expectancy is impacted and you're the high income earner, you should be waiting until 70. Because when you die, that's what your surviving spouse gets. Take the lesser earnings. So you guys don't even know the mechanics. The financial service industry doesn't understand the mechanics. That's why the class is 8 hours, like a master's level. Go to the charity's website. Just look at taxation on Social Security. We do a webinar, taxation and retirement. And we go through an example of Social Security and how that decision's made. It will blow you away. It's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars of doing it right versus wrong. And it's a tax problem, Paul.
Yeah, this topic has become a sort of a lightning rod, especially for politicians, to be honest with you. Right? This is a hot topic, right? I mean, how often do we sit with people in class and they come up at a break and say, I'm worried I'm going to lose I'm not going to get any Social Security. I think I should take it now. Like, where did you get that from? Like, who told you that you're losing all your Social Security is going away, right? I mean, there's such panic and anxiety about this, and of course, our the financial service industry as well as politicians, use this often. I think the problem with so many of these things that we're talking about today is, these general rules and guidances were never intended. They should, or at least, maybe I take this back. They probably were intended, should never have been intended to be used as gospel to determine what you're going to do. They're general rules that have now become gospel. And I think people, and many people use these, and many of them are dangerous. And if you think, for example, you're going to, one day they're going to take your Social Security away totally. If that's what you believe, man, there's a lot more you better be figuring out than when to take your Social Security. Because the world will change dramatically if that happens, right? You have to use some common sense, Kirk, right? I think often people don't.
Paul, I think sometimes they're using that excuse to take it. I'm going to take theirs before I spend mine, so mine will last longer, and that's not actually what happens. There's so much misinformation around this. I mean, all I can tell you guys is we've done this tens of thousands of times. We've run tens of thousands of iterations to figure this stuff out. We are the experts nationally when it comes to retirement planning. And you got to trust us when we tell you, first of all, your Social Security isn't going away if you're over 50 years old today. What it looks like for younger people, we'll see. But 40% of baby boomers, all they have is Social Security. They can't take that away from people. You're talking about millions of dollars of income in retirement. You've got much bigger problems if they take your Social Security away. You better never retire. If you really think that's legitimate, don't ever retire because you won't have enough. So if you want to learn more about when and how to take Social Security and understand retirement, you need to go to this 8-hour class by a charity. To register, you just need to go to retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org. To find our latest white papers and webinars, go to retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org. And remember to subscribe or follow wherever you listen to your podcasts. And now back to the show.
I want to get back to our program. I do want to pause just to remind you, if you want to listen to this show again or share it with a friend, you can find it wherever you download your favorite podcast. Search for the name of our program, Retirement Education Hour. Okay, I had to find out this as it relates to these so-called experts in the financial field. Kirk and Paul, what are they saying about how much risk you can afford to take in retirement?
So this one's tricky. Really, I was, as we were getting ready to do this segment, I was thinking to myself, I even wrote down a note, Paul, we should do a full show on risk in retirement, because there's so many variables. There are just so many variables to this There is no general rule. There's no 60-40 rule. Stop with that nonsense. That's dead. And not that you can't succeed investing 60% of your money in stocks and 40% in bonds, but as a default rule, that's dead. There should be no general default to how much risk you have or shouldn't have. There are two variables that this comes down to. And again, this is a full show. This needs to be a show. And frankly, this is a big topic in our class because, Paul, it comes down to first is behavior, right? As an expert, Paul, you've studied psychology. You're a PsyD. You're a doctor of psychology, and also did I think fellowship in geriatric psychology. Like, you understand people's behavior as they age, and fear and anxiety increases as people age, particularly when it comes to their money, finances, their investments. So one of the things that we talk about in the class is there's two variables. One is, how much risk can I tolerate before I would change a behavior? Meaning, so you want to set yourself up for success in retirement, you need to determine how much you could tolerate losing before you would change a behavior in terms of going on vacation, a home improvement project, or change a behavior. I'm not going to retire this year because my portfolio went down 25, 30%. You have to determine what you can tolerate losing before you would react. You can't react. Markets go up and down. You cannot react. You're not supposed to react. You're not supposed to market time your investments, particularly in retirement. You market time income, where you take your income from in retirement. And so if you set yourself up to succeed behaviorally so you don't overreact or make an emotional decision every time we have a short-term market event, you're setting yourself up for success. So that's behavioral. Now, the second piece is, Warren Buffett said it, you have to be insane to risk what you have for something you don't need. So, in other words, what do I need to give me what I want? It's goal-based. Your risk should be driven by your emotions, what you can tolerate, set yourself up for success, and then what do I need to give me the retirement I want? Those are the two variables that should drive your risk. Now, I want to be clear. I want to be really clear. The financial service industry is well aware of your fear and anxiety, and that's why annuity sales are so significant in our society, and why every person on the radio and TV, most everyone on radio and TV, predominantly sell annuities. They're insurance salespeople, playing on people's fears and anxieties. If you have an appropriate plan that does all the risk mitigation that you understand, then you don't fall and you're not a sucker to buying annuities. Do you know that 95% of people who buy annuities lose to the insurance company? It's not the annuity's fault. I mean, I will tell you, in our private practice, we sometimes use them. They are sometimes appropriate, but finding the right ones at the right times is what drives whether you should own an annuity or not. It's not an emotional decision. It's a math problem. It's a risk mitigation problem. It's, what do I need to give me what I want problem. That's all this is. It's got to be based on logic, math, modeling many iterations to figure out how much risk I need to take, Paul. And you're going to have some investments that you're not touching for 10 plus years. That should be aggressive. The dollars I'm spending early, that's got to be really, really conservative. And then I've got to have pivot accounts because we're going to have major market events every 4 to 7 years throughout your retirement. I'm sorry, I consumed so much time, but I told you this is a full show, this risk question.
Yeah, I actually wrote it down. I think it's a great idea. And I think you're absolutely right. It's both a behavioral issue and a numbers issue. And you know, the behavioral issue put aside for now, the numbers issue is, as you just said, is solely driven by your income plan, right? Assuming behaviorally you can manage anxiety, this is strictly an income plan issue, right? If you don't need money from a particular account for 5, 10, 20 years, why would you have it in bonds? It doesn't make sense, right? So what drives your risk primarily, besides your behavior, is your income plan. So your allocation should not even be thought about until your income plan is decided. That's the first step of this. And as you said, it's really about when do you need money and how are you going to use it?
Well, we'll talk about it next segment, but the plan drives everything, right? To Paul's point, the numbers, the math. The plan drives everything. The plan will dictate how much you should be in risk, what should be in risk, which assets you put in risk, what more conservative. It's a math problem and then a risk mitigation problem. That's what it is. And then for you all, it's an education problem. You guys got to come to this 8-hour class. It's why our charity exists, so that you can have better and more freedom in retirement, less fear and anxiety as you age. Go to our 8-hour class taught at major universities in your areas. And if you're not in those areas, you can stream them live while we teach them at the universities. If you'd like to register, go to retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org. Thanks for listening to the Retirement Education Hour. Be sure to follow or subscribe when listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And now back to the show.
Talking today about so-called financial industry experts and some of the things that they tell you that could be very misleading. And we've talked about a lot today on the show, from income to Social Security, how much you can spend and how much you should be able to spend. Also, we want to talk about planning. And this is really what it all harkens back to. Kirk and Paul, tell me why.
You know, it's funny, Megan. We've taught, we keep saying this, tens of thousands of people now, hundreds and hundreds of radio shows, podcasts, and TV shows. The classes is where we have the greatest impact. That's where we can get a room full of, 40, 50 people, and then we usually have 40, 50 people streaming. And look, you guys can go online and look at the feedback. We change people's lives, literally change people's lives from the class. They will spend more. The majority of people attending our courses are spending more, retiring earlier. They're paying significantly less taxes. And I think the greatest gift that we're giving is less fear and anxiety as they age. It's a game changer. It's like a master's level course for that $700 to $10 million families, highly educated, sophisticated. They think they got it all dialed in. Once we finally convince people to get to a class, it's like... as we're teaching the class, we can see the light bulbs going off above people's heads. It's like, it reminds me of like a cartoon. It's remarkable. But these shows, Paul, that we do, this is a labor of love. And it has to be. People have asked us all the time when we're teaching class, you guys you have so much passion and energy in these radio shows. Every show, every podcast, you're bringing intensity. And how do you guys do it? Don't you get tired? And it's like, look, we know from our radio and podcasts, we're impacting per show like 5 to 10 people. That has to be a labor of love to do the work that we're doing for a charity as a volunteer, to do these shows and only be able to impact 5 to 10 people. Because that's about how many people from a radio show attends a class. Now, when we get them to the class, changes their life. We do this every show, every podcast. We end it the same way. The solution for all of you who are listening today, the solution is a comprehensive retirement plan, which none of you have. You don't have it. Believe us, and don't want to come to a class? You're not bought into that yet? Go to the charity's website and look at a sample retirement plan webinar. It's 30 minutes long. None of you have that. None of you know how much income you can really spend. And you'll see in that plan, most of you will be able to spend 6, 7, 8, 9% per year in retirement. Most of you will realize, oh my gosh, I can retire a lot sooner with this comprehensive plan. Now that plan takes 50 hours to build. That's a big part of our class is how do I find a team wherever I'm at that can build a plan like this? And does my team really, they say they're doing it, but are they really building a plan like this? Do I really have pivot accounts? Do I really know where I'm taking my income from when we have a major market event, which is going to happen every 3 to 7 years in retirement? I mean, that's 4, 5, 6 times you're going to have major market events throughout your retirement. Do you have risk mitigation for long-term care? Do you know how much taxes you're going to pay? Do you know how much RMDs you're going to be taking in your 80s so you know what income you should be spending today or when you should be taking Social Security? Most of you will make the wrong decisions with the lump sum pension decision you got to make. Again, we have a webinar out there you can watch. You can learn the math. It's a math problem. It's not an emotional problem. None of this is an emotional problem. It's a math problem. Now, how do we fix the emotional problem? By having a plan and making sure you understand it. And that's the purpose of the class. See, you're not going to go to this class and build this plan. You may think you are, but I'll make you a bet. I'll make anyone a bet. Whatever bet you want, you will not go to that class and walk away and be able to build this plan. But what you'll be able to do is find out is the people that you're trying to hire to help you, if they can build the plan. And are they building the plan? You'll understand the levers that will drive your success in retirement, that will give you freedom, that will give you risk mitigation, that will give you 7, 8, 9% withdrawal rates, that will save you hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes. And then is that team educating you on your plan so that you don't have anxiety? Paul, I'll throw it to you really quick. I'm giving you just a minute. I'm sorry. I went on too long. I can finish it up if you want. What do you prefer?
You go finish it, dude.
Okay, I'm sorry. Look, people may not know this, but on average, since 1980, our stock market goes down almost 14% a year, on average. So how are you going to react and behave? Are you going to panic? That's why you have to come to an 8-hour class. It's going to change your retirement. I don't know what we have to do to beg you, convince you as a charity to attend one of these classes. We make it very affordable. It's a $29 donation to charity. That's all we ask. $29. It's a donation to charity. And we've often partnered with large charities so that those dollars are passed through to, right now it's the Alzheimer's Association. Alzheimer's is amazing, right? So attend one of these 8-hour courses. They're taught at major universities and colleges in your area. They're taught over 2 evenings or 1 full Saturday. I will guarantee you, I'll make a $2,000 guarantee to anyone who attends the class. If we don't change your retirement, I will make a $2,000, personally make a $2,000 donation to whatever charity you want if you attend this course and we don't change your retirement. So please register. Go to retirementplanningedu.org, retirementplanningedu.org. I hope to see you there.
Retirement Education Foundation is a fiscally sponsored program of United Charitable, a registered 501c3 public charity. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any insurance discussed in this show is backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual's situation. Retirement Education Foundation is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Retirement Education Foundation. This radio show is paid for by the Retirement Education Foundation.